Hey y'all, I'm Jordan Larson.
And Mike Shrimp here for the Nashville Jam Tracks on YouTube.
Yep, if you've jammed to any of our backing tracks, you're jamming with us, because we're the dudes that make them.
That's right.
Well, I've been playing fiddle and guitar for a living here in Nashville for a few years now.
Yeah, my main instrument is piano and harmonica. And of course engineering now for about 40 years or plus.
Yep. And we got the privilege to go down to Starstruck Studios on Music Row.
Yeah, what a studio it is.
Yeah, and thanks to my buddy Tori Harding, who's the studio manager there, for hooking us up. Great dude.
They have a closet. I mean, a big closet full of microphones. And we were able to take every one of their microphones and run a test on it. Now, as an engineer, we ran it through their SSL console to a Neve 1073 preamp, and we ran it flat.
Yeah, no EQ.
So, no EQ at all, no compressor. We wanted to capture the true characteristics of each microphone.
Yep. And we ended up testing about 200 grand of mics.
Ooh, yes, we did.
And I just played the same thing on my fiddle for each mic so we could hear the differences in the microphone. This isn't about the playing, it's all about the microphone.
The tone. And so we went from, I believe we're going to go through the most inexpensive mics up to the most expensive mics on our video.
$75 all the way up to $30,000.
$30,000, yeah, oh boy.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get started.
Alrighty, let's go to Starstruck.
All right.
So I'm at Starstruck Studios here on Music Row with Ava, who's helping us do something really cool today. What are we doing, Ava?
We're running a bunch of mics through the SSL 9000 and then through the Neve 1073s and right through Pro Tools. Testing out fiddles.
Fiddle
One
mics.
fiddle.
Yeah, one fiddle,
multiple
a gazillion mics. And we're going to see which one sounds the best.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your help, Ava.
Of course.
Well, okay, here we go with the dynamic mic test.
Yeah, we just listened to the dynamic mics.
There's 8 of them all together.
And Mike and I did not discuss what our favorite mics were until now. And we're going to see which ones we picked.
I have my sheet, and he has his, and we numbered them from 1 to 8. So here we go.
So my number 1 was the Shure SM7B.
And that was mine as well.
Really?
Yeah, running a close second to the RE20 Electro Voice.
That was my number 2 as well. What did you like about the Shure SM7B?
Well, I just thought it was a bit fuller. It sounded more like a condenser mic without that high-end scratchiness.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a run-in for any situation with the fiddle, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I thought that the SM7B, the only thing that I liked more about it than the RE20 was there's like a clarity on the bottom end. It sounded resonant, and I love that open resonant bottom end, like Joshua Bell Butterfly Lovers album.
Yeah. So number 3, my pick would have been the SM58, and right behind it the SM57, which most people know it's the same microphone, except the 58 of course has the vocal windscreen on it.
I like the 58 more than the 57.
You did. I think it had to do with the windscreen dampening the high end of it a little bit, so it was a hair less shrill for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The 58 would have been my number 3 as well, and I didn't really think through number 4, but we're going to move on to the small diaphragm condensers now. All right, we just finished listening to the small diaphragm condenser mics. And what was your number one, Mickers?
Well, before that, I wanted to mention that the most expensive mic on the list, and there's 2 or 3 of them, but we're right at $2,000 or under.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, all these are pretty affordable.
Yeah. So my first pick was, I'm a Norman fan. I can't help it. The my first pick was the M582 Norman.
The Neumann M582. Okay. What was your second?
Oh, my second would be then the Norman KM84.
Okay.
And then third on the list became another Norman KM184.
That's great because that's the same 3 mics I picked.
Is it
But
really?
I put the KM84 as number 1. The Neumann M582 is number 2.
Yeah.
And the KM184 is number 3.
They all were very comparable. I mean,
Why'd you
Norman
put the
mics are great.
KM184 as 3?
I thought it sounded just a hair hollow for your fiddle.
Mhm.
Had just like the mid range was just a little lacking. So like when you got up in the middle of the scale, it seemed like it kind of just went away a little bit. The presence, not much now, but a little bit. If I was using that mic on your fiddle, I probably would have maybe adjusted the EQ or a little bit there, or maybe add a little compressor to it to kind of bring those notes up. But it was minor,
Yeah.
We had to go back and forth. I know when you were sampling what you wanted to rehear,
Yeah.
it was the same mics I wanted to rehear.
Yeah.
So, but I'd like to give honorable mention to one. Now, if you want a warm fiddle sound, like when it's warm in that low end where it's not so clear, but like maybe for orchestra, something like that, I like that PSIMK.
Yeah.
I mean,
PSIMK is actually a mic that I carry around with me to all my fiddle gigs because
Oh, it is. Is that the
that's
little
the
one
little
that goes?
clip-on mic.
Oh, the clip-on mic.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. Well, you know what? It came in way high. In fact, that was my 4th or 5th pick.
Really?
Yeah, it was. So, yeah, it's a good mic. I mean,
Yeah.
make sure your fiddle sounds great on stage.
Well, thanks.
So you worked hard to get that tone right. And,
But I like the KM84 and M582 because they had a clear resonant bottom end, but it didn't sound muffly
Yeah,
at all.
right. It's clean.
It
was
wasn't
thick.
bitey on the top end.
Right.
Yeah.
All of those things. Norman mics are great. If you can afford one, you can't go wrong with any of their stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not endorsing them. I'm just telling you what I've found over the last 40 years.
The most interesting mic of the group to me was the B&K, the Brule and Cager
Yeah, whatever it is.
4007.
Yeah,
That was so mid-rangey.
it was. Yeah,
That was insane.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's kind of I don't even know what application you would have for it's like almost like a tube screamer for the fiddle. But
Right,
it was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I guess in some applications, it was way low on my list. It was about, I don't know, 5th or 6th on my list.
I definitely wouldn't buy one, but to me it stood out sound-wise from the rest.
Oh, it was definitely different.
It was the weirdest one.
Yeah, it really was. So,
All right.
All
Well,
right.
you want to listen to some ribbon mics?
sure.
All right.
Can't wait to do that. They're great. All right, well, we're at the ribbon mics now, right?
Yes.
They are so unique sounding,
Yeah.
and for some things, they are just the best thing you could ever use. So I'm going to go first again. I think the RCA 77DX was my favorite. That mic, first of all, you have to tilt that mic at an angle, and it changes the tone because the ribbon sags in the middle, and that's what we did, if you see on the video. And you got to make sure you have it flipped one way or the other, because one side sounds a little different than the other. But the way we had it that day is my favorite microphone for the fiddle. That would be number one for me. Number two and number three is a close second and third for me. I thought if I had to pick one of the two, I probably would have went with the Royer 121 for number two, and just barely, with knowing that the high end was a little bit shrill, and I would have probably backed it off about 10 or 12K to record with you. Mm-hmm. And then because the low end sounded good to me, like the DX or 77DX, it sounded like the room. Mm-hmm. You know, with ribbon mics, you know, it picks up from all sides, so you hear the room in that scenario. But I liked what it sounded like in the low end better than the other. And then, of course, the third, like I said, was the Coles 4038. It would have been, you know, excellent to use on a fiddle. You know, I would have thought the big square mic, the RCA, because that was such a popular mic back in the 40s and 50s, mm-hmm. would have sounded, I thought, better than it did. It was big and full, but for the fiddle, it just didn't sound quite right. It sounded too muddly and mushy to me.
It was my number three. I picked the 77DX as my first.
Yeah.
You can see when we were recording through these mics, I fell in love with that mic. So now I have a 77DX t-shirt. The experience I had playing my violin through that microphone was almost transcendent. As soon as I hit the first note underneath that microphone, I just fell in love with it.
You did.
It was unbelievable. It was like it's like what my violin would sound like to my ears if I was in a really good room. And I like the sound of my violin. And I like what, you know, my ears are my favorite microphone, and it sounded like my ears.
Of course, we were in a great room because we're at Starstruck in that wonderful vocal. I guess there was a vocal room where we were sitting up.
But the 77DX, it had plenty of high end, but it didn't have any shrillness at all. It was just sweet. All the harmonics were sweet. They were there, but they were sweet. My number two was the Coles 4038, and I was between the Royer R121 and the RCA 44BX for number three. And I chose the RCA for the reason that you said you'd want to EQ the 121, where I thought the 121 was a little bit sharp on the high end.
Yeah, definitely.
It was almost, or maybe it was hollow a little bit in the mid-range. It's like one of the two. I would say it was lacking. So that's why I ended up going with the RCA. So we were one off from each other.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can see it, but I had it at 7.5 and 7.4. And I scratched it out at one point because I had them flipped like you did.
Yeah.
And I thought, when we heard them back to back again, and I knew as an engineer what I would do. Oh, I know what I could fix that and do this, and then it would be great. So either one of those mics would be wonderful for a violin.
All right, so we have one more group left.
Oh, the big group.
The biggest group. I think we may have to take him in sections so we don't have, so our ears don't get wore out, confused.
In the studio, we use a lot of large diaphragm condensers.
Yeah.
You know, the diaphragms are, you know, about that big or more inside the microphone. It does vibrate at a different rate than a small condenser. There's a lot of physical attributes, and these mics are probably overall in any studio used the most for most things.
Yeah, if I walk into a studio to play fiddle, they're gonna have me under a large diaphragm condenser mic.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's listen.
Let's go.
All right, so large diaphragm condensers, we're doing these in 3 groups. We're doing the first group now, which is ones that are under $3,000.
Under 3,000, yeah, that's right.
All right, I'll go first this time.
Okay, sure.
My number 1 was the AKG C414 BULS, which is the silver one. What was your number 1?
Same one.
Same one.
Yeah, the silver, by far.
My number 2 was the other AKG 414, which was the gold one. What was your number 2?
Yeah, me too.
My number 3 was the Neumann TLM 193.
Right there. There it is.
So I thought the AKG silver, it was actually a little brighter than the gold AKG to my ears.
Yeah.
But there was a emotion conveyed in that I really liked. I don't know, I don't know what about it sounded more, it was more emotive to me.
I think that mic is a little bit louder because when she recorded these mics, the same preamp, same volume settings, everything, so we could hear the mics
Yeah.
all the characteristics of it. And that mic was definitely hotter, but you're right. It had a clarity, or it just like when you played the fiddle, it was just like you kind of got seduced into it a little bit.
Yeah.
It really did. I heard the emotion part you mentioned. So
Yeah, and the gold was great. It wasn't rough around the edges at all. It was like it was so mellowed out, you almost couldn't love it.
yeah, and that would be good for like a string quartet. You know, if you had like a 4 or 5 string quartet, get 3 of those and put them in the configuration for that. That mic would be wonderful because it's warm. But you're right, for a fiddle, if you're going to take a fiddle solo, I would by far would have taken the silver one over the gold.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep. And then the TLM 193. Any comments on that one?
Let's see.
I really just didn't like any of the other ones.
Yeah, you know, for Norman mics, it wasn't as impressive as the AKG in this circumstance.
Yeah.
I know there's more expensive Norman mics we're going to get to, but for me, that one just didn't carry the weight of the other ones.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't bad, but it was just kind of eh.
Yeah.
And the rest of the ones in this under 3,000, I didn't really care for.
No, not at all. And I like some of the other mics that are even cheaper.
Yeah.
The ones we did before, I would have picked those over some of these.
Yep. Okay, well, we're gonna do we'll do the next most expensive group now,
Which is between what, 3,000 and 10,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Alrighty. All right, this group was really, really, really tough. I'm not even totally sure of my picks. I listened to them over and over.
Yeah.
But I do think there was a winner.
I think there was a winner.
What was your winner?
Obviously, these are $3,000 to $10,000 microphones.
A big range.
They're going to be all great mics.
Yes.
And it really was hard to determine.
Everyone was killer.
Okay, so my number one out of this group would have been the Norman SM69.
Really? Oh, we didn't.
Yes.
We didn't have the same number one.
Well, these are all really close. I mean, we listened over and over, but that mic just had a presence about it, especially in the low end. Like when you played your double stops at the front, where it sounded like the orchestra to me. So the low end of that mic was nice and rich.
It had a huge low end. I could tell as soon as in the clip I said like Neumann SM69, and I could just tell by the resonance it like picked up the whole bottom end of my voice. I sounded like boomy.
Oh, right, yeah. And
that was my number 2, by the way.
well, my number 1 would have been the U47. And just because...
U47 FET.
The FET, yeah.
Not a U47.
I'm sorry, U47 FET, yeah. And I thought it was right behind the U87. Of course, I'm used to a U87 because we have one here at our studio.
So U87 was your number 2.
Was number 3.
Oh,
the
3.
FET was number 47. FET was just a hair above that.
Okay.
I was back and forth on either one of those. And then, so 3, and then 4 right behind that was the M149. And I even had it
Well, we don't need to be worrying
half
about
a point. Yeah.
4.
I'm sorry. We can't go to 4. All right. Well,
So what was your 1, 2, and 3?
My 1 is this SM69.
Okay.
The 2 was the U47 FET, and number 3 would have been the U87 AI.
All right. My number 1 was the Sony C800. Number 2 was the Neumann SM69. Number 3 was the Neumann U47 FET. Now, what didn't you like about the C800?
I love the C800, but when I heard the Neumanns, they're warmer. Like,
Really?
to me, it sounded great. I mean, the low end sounded great, and it was clear. But it seemed like, to me, hearing them back to back, it was like the Sony just left out something that I missed, because I know your fiddle can be warm and pretty, and it seemed like it was bold and clear, and like if I was listening to it, it'd be like I love the high end, but I missed that little bit of that warm, rumbling sound of that fiddle in the low.
Yeah. That's what the high end is what sealed the deal for me with the Sony, because the Neumanns have a lot of top end on them, and I think if you had an EQ on it, the SM69 hands down the best mic.
Right.
Like if I'm going to pick a mic to record my fiddle with, it's going to be the SM69.
Mm-hmm.
But I picked the Sony in this just listening to them flat, because the 69 had too much. I would rather have a little less on the low end and a little less on the high end than the SM69. If that makes
Well,
sense.
early on in my judging, after listening to them all, the C800 Sony was my number 1 pick, hands down.
Yeah.
And with a close second to the 69, and that's where you ended up, right?
Yeah.
But then I heard it again and again, and then I thought, that Neumanns, they just have a thing about them that I like.
Well, that low end in the 69 was sweet.
It was sweet.
It was big.
Yes, it was.
Okay, now for the really expensive mics, we're going to do anything over 10 grand.
Yeah.
So the cheapest mic in this group is $15,000.
Yeah. Yahoo. So we have to go to Starstruck to be able to use these mics, right?
Yeah. All right. So,
All right.
say you're 1, 2, and 3.
So $10,000 plus.
Yep.
All the way up actually to $30,000 for some of these.
Yep.
I'm a little bit surprised because I had a really hard time picking any of them as a winner. But for a fiddle, and for if I was recording a fiddle and putting it out on a record, and I had my choice, I think the Telefunken was my first choice.
Okay.
And right behind it was the AKG C24.
Okay.
The C24 has this presence and this dominance, this thing, like it just puts it right in your face,
Yeah.
which I love most of the time. And I think, of course, either one would have been a great test. And I really had a hard time choosing.
What was 3?
And 3's a tie. I swear I couldn't decide. I love the way the U47 sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I've used it before on lots of different stuff over the years, and it's a great mic. But right there with it was that AKG C12.
Okay.
And I mean, I just couldn't decide. They sound different,
Yeah.
but they're both great. And I thought the 47 sound like a 47. I've always heard. But then this AKG comes along, and unlike the 24, it was a little less in your face,
Mm-hmm.
but it had this sweet, sweet tone to it.
So I originally picked the Telefunken Elam 251 as my number 1 also.
Uh-huh.
But then I ended up scribbling it out and putting the U47 as my number 1.
Ah.
And then having the Telefunken as my number 2.
2.
And then my 3 was the AKG C24.
Yeah.
The AKG C24, while it wasn't my favorite fiddle sound, that's a special microphone.
Yeah. It is.
That sound is just, I don't know what, there's just something about it that it's like, you hear that and you're like, wow, I can hear why that's $30,000.
Yeah.
If I could like have a dream microphone combo for my fiddle,
Yeah.
if I was like playing in a concert hall and I could pick any 2 mics that I would want sitting above me, I would have picked the AKG C24 and the RCA 77DX ribbon mic.
Right back.
Those 2 together, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it would be great.
But I thought the Neumann U47, it didn't have as much resonance on the low end as the Telefunken or the AKG, but it was sweeter on the top.
Mm-hmm.
That's what put it to number 1 for me.
Yeah.
The Telefunken was awesome.
Yeah.
The AKG wasn't my favorite fiddle sound, but boy, is that a cool sounding mic. Gosh. And the Sony C800, I didn't like that one.
Really, the G?
Or the AKG C12.
Yeah.
They were too shrill for me.
Yeah.
But were you thinking you could EQ that out, or did you like it?
It had a clarity to it, like it would stand out in the track,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I'm thinking in the mix, but I mean, I liked the way the fiddle sounded in the mic. I thought the Sony was really good too. I'm not sure, is that the one Reba uses?
The C800, my favorite on the last.
Oh, the last one was the
Yeah.
one Reba's. That's
The
actually
$15,000 C800G is the one that's used in a lot of R&B recording.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's great, but
It's the one with that big old like heat thing.
oh
in the
right,
back
right,
of
I
it.
got you. Yeah, you're right. That was down almost to the bottom of my list on that one. So, well, there you have it.
So do you have a favorite overall?
I'm really sold on I like the RCA 77DX.
Yeah.
There's something special about that mic, the way you did it that day. Again, we tilted it, and we may even had it upside down. We don't know, because it's such an old mic. Even we didn't know which way to turn it.
Yeah.
And I know you used that mic in a session the other day down there,
Mm-hmm.
and had it turned the other way.
Yeah.
And you made the comment to me, well, you know, that mic didn't sound like it did when we tested it, but it still sounded great.
Well, I'd had sinus stuff going on too during that session.
Yeah, that makes a difference. But I know you have to tilt it because if it's up straight, like if you're singing into it straight, the tone of it changes. I mean,
Yeah.
we all know that. All the engineers do. So
Yeah, that RCA 77DX was the best that I thought my violin was ever sounded.
Yeah.
I loved it. I would just it was like I died and went to heaven playing through that. So I would agree. Was there a second place?
boy, of course the Telefunken.
You like the
It
Telefunken?
sounded good, and
Yeah, I'd be between the U47,
Yeah.
the Telefunken ELAM 251, and the Sony C800
right,
as my. Well, the SM69 was good too.
yeah,
Second place is a lot harder. That was pretty cool. And thanks again for Tori Harding letting us, come down there and try out all these mics. We ended up trying about $200,000 of microphones. And there's also Ava, who's an intern at Starstruck, who she would set up all the microphones, and she's the one who recorded everything. So thank you so much
Yeah.
to her.
taking 2 days out of her Christmas break.
Yeah,
But we went down there during the holidays when Starstruck was dark. Didn't have anything booked in there.
yeah.
That's the reason we were able to get in there. And we want to thank Ava for coming 2 different days and
Yep.
probably showing us the best hamburger in Nashville.
Yeah, Jack Brown.
Jack Brown's. It was great. If you're down on Music Road, you need lunch, man. Go over there and
Yeah.
have one of their hamburgers.
Well, we appreciate y'all watching, and
We do.
hopefully this is helpful. I know as a fiddle player and him as an engineer, we both were really excited about this and
Yeah.
find this tremendously helpful because we're both very invested in how the violin sounds being recorded.
Yeah. Well, all the instruments really, but we got to check it on your violin.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. And maybe we'll get to do other instruments in the future. We'll see.
All right.
All right, see y'all.